Cyril. What a beauty. Hawthorne was... I don't believe it. I see it, but I don't believe it. Close with a capital C. How did he do it? Legendary Eustace. Oh my goodness. Is this one to remember?
G'day community, welcome to the Jock Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I am Lekdog, coming off the back of round 2. I'm joined by you, Patch, the man in orange. How are you?
Hello, Lekdog. I'm good. It's a historic week, Lekdog. It is a historic week and a historic time because Sunday marked the last time ever, until he retires, that I will not have Nick Dacos in my Supercoach team.
It was a historic day for many. Got a few people, including 2 hosts of this show, got scared off by the tag in the preseason. Turns out Nick Dacos doesn't care about a tag. The man is a beast. A lot of coaches, he'll be in close to 100% of teams this week, I'd imagine. And of course, this will be the week that he probably underperforms a little bit, but he is so unbelievably good.
He's rather good at football, which, again, we were told. People were like, oh, hey, Liz Nick Dacos kid could be quite good. And we're like, yeah, but second year. I'd like
good enough for the number 1 pick, though, unfortunately.
No, not good enough.
Not quite good enough.
Not quite there. But 21 that I scared off Nick Dacos, 20 of the 55% of people that didn't have him at the end of last week, I'd like to formally apologize because I was wrong as hell. And I know I'll be wrong as hell again, but to this magnitude, I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
No, we can't win them all, and that's why we should all just pick our teams in December and not touch them, because my team in December certainly had one Nick Dacos in it. Patch, let's go through the injury news first, because there's a few injuries. We'll touch on the pod as we go along about replacements for these guys, but we'll just get them out of the way. We're recording this Monday night, 27th of the 3rd, 2023, just so you know if any other injury news comes out after this. So, Jack Steele, broken collarbone, will miss a month. I had him in my team. Disappointing to see. Came out and got 5 disposals in a quarter with a broken collarbone.
How do you... I cannot fathom that. I mean, you love the commitment to him wanting to score fantasy points, but on the same token, they were up by like 8 goals. Why are you out there, sense. Jack Steele? What the hell are you doing?
The man is a beast. Speaking of beasts, this one hurt a few, including myself, who was very chuffed after a round 1 score of 140. Max Gawn, essentially done. Like, may as well have been at the opening bounce. He'll miss 4 to 6 weeks, at least, you'd think, with an medial ligament injury. I don't know what that is. It's not an ACL, which is good.
Yeah, it's no bueno, but it could have been more bueno.
It could have definitely been more bueno. So Max Gawn's out. Fife was a laid out. He'll probably miss again. So if you're an owner of an at Fife, I think we can probably move on. Our very own Matt Forrest reporting that Jeremy Cameron is battling a rib injury and may miss this week. So if you wanted to bring him in after a massive, amazing performance against Carlton, probably don't. Josh Kelly, Lockie Whitfield, they're expected to play round 3, though that's no lock, obviously, because of that concussion. And then the other one that's probably going to be affecting a few people. It looked like Jacob Hopper was dead at one point during that Richmond game. He came back on. He was very good, but he seems likely that he's going to miss with a knee injury. Jaden Short will also miss. If he misses, we just need to know how many weeks he's out for, Patch. If it's a 1 weeker or they think it's going to be a 1 weeker, I'm probably, unless you've got no other issues, he's probably one you can hold. However, if they come out and say it could be 2 weeks, that at this stage would be enough doubt for me to just turf him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a chat about who we really want and really need to get into our sides shortly. But if it's only 1 week, then certainly on the back of what his ceiling can be, he's proven that he can do it in the real deal. You'd be inclined to hold if that's possible, and if your rookie coverage on the bench holds up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We do tend to have plenty of rookies this year at this stage, particularly in the midfield. Connor Rosey, he had a knock in that Port Adelaide Collingwood game. He didn't have to do any concussion protocols or anything like that, but it's just one I'm going to monitor throughout the week. I mean, it's not like I'm going to trade him, but he's certainly one that I want to watch. And I think that's probably all of the Super Coach relevant
The
injury news for us.
only other potential one was Finn Callaghan.
Callaghan.
Copped a knock in 30% of sides. Only scored the 45. Was in the second quarter, I think it was. He got cleaned up pretty hard. Fell to the ground clutching his shoulder. Managed to come back on, but gee whiz, he didn't want to really be doing too much when he was back on. Wasn't tackling. Wasn't really throwing himself at the ball. So there's every chance there that, if that doesn't come up, then he misses a week. And that 45 as well is not quite the number we wanted on the back of his 101 in the opening round. So I don't know, that's one to monitor there if you're an owner of Callaghan.
Yep, one to watch. We'll definitely touch on him. Patch, before we dive into things, do a quick round review of our own sides, just because people seem to be interested. People keep asking on Twitter. I managed to pump out a 2,200 without Max Gawn's score counting. Well, I guess it did count. It was 0, which, Patch, I was happy with. But the real highlight for me, I mean, we're going to talk about him later, but the real highlight for me was obviously your man, Will Setterfield.
Setters, huge. 147, which I thought he'd do good. Didn't think it'd be averaging 123 in the first 2 rounds good, but
no.
Yeah,
I was thinking like 80.
I was 90, 95, but yeah, that was huge. And well, speaking of the 2023 Premiers Essendon, I regret not starting Mason Redman after he was in my side for months and months, and has pumped out 118 and 110 to start the year.
Yes, he has been. He's been very good. The only question mark I still have over him, and hey, it may not apply. You may go through the season undefeated. Is that last year in losses versus wins, his point differential? I can't remember the exact number, but it was massive. It was a massive standard deviation in wins versus losses. However, if he and Setterfield keep playing like this, Patch, you might have no bars this year.
We're not going to have any buys. We're winning the whole damn thing, Lekdog, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's
I want you to get your hopes up so high.
I am blocking out all of September, just all of it, just blocked out. We were going for Harley Reid, a month ago. I was all aboard the Harley Reid trade, and now don't care. We can have pick 18. I'll cop that.
I don't really want to harp on our teams too much longer. I've got one question for you because I think this is someone that we both own and most people out there would own. Tim Taranto, he has to do a lot to get his points. 95 on the weekend. He seems to have to work really, really hard to turn up.
Yeah.
Slight concern. I put a pin in it last week. The pin is now... am I putting the pin in deeper or am I pulling the pin out slightly?
Are you twisting the pin?
I'm twisting the pin.
Yeah.
And I'm tapping. I'm close to tapping the sign. My finger's pointing at the sign. Do not make me tap the sign.
Don't make him tap the sign, folks. Just don't do it. You don't want to see him tap the sign. Yeah. Look, it's not great, but also we kind of knew that. He's always been an accumulator. He's always been kind of a, that Darcy Parish mold where he can have 37 touches and not ton up. But we knew that he's in the role where he can accumulate, and that's just how the cookie's going to crumble. He'll still be a top 8 midfielder, midfielder, top 8 forward, barring injury. So we're not going to see that ceiling of, it is what it is. That's just the way it's going to be, little darling. So
all right, before we jump into the player sort of breakdowns and analysis, are you and should everybody listening be making 3 trades this week?
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. I'd be making 4 if I could, but no matter how much I yell at the beloved Tim Mitchell, he refuses to budge and says he can't physically do it and it's not possible. And also it's not ethical for him to accept hundreds of dollars in bribes and la-di-da-di-da. But anyway, so I'm making 3 trades. Yes. I don't see unless you're coming first even if you're coming first
Even
in
if you're coming
Supercoach,
first.
you're making 3 trades this week. Hit that boost button, baby. Fly away. I don't care if you used 3 last week. Just do it again. Do it again.
I don't believe there's anyone out there that can't benefit from using 3 trades this week, even if it's a rookie correction. Obviously, we've been lucky. There hasn't been a heap of rookie cullings yet between round 1 and round 2, but round 2 and round 3, I think we're not going to be as lucky. For me, Patch, 3 trades as well. I've got 2 forced trades. I got Jack Steele and Max Gorn that have to go. And then it's a question of let's assume all my rookies get named. Then it's a question of, do I turf at Bailey Dale, who's been bad, or do I upgrade a Liam Jones? So I'm definitely looking at turning Steele, Gorn, and Jones into 3 500k players. That's where I'm currently sort of.
Yeah. Well, looking at the broad strokes of it, we spoke a little bit last week about it, where we needed to get the rookies right. What is the focus this week? Is the focus getting the points on the field? Is it chasing Nick Dacos at all cost? If you're an absolute buffoon who didn't start him, how could you be so stupid for not starting him? God! Or are we making 3 rookie trades? And if you've got Nick Madden, you've got 1 other rookie that's not playing, and you've got Campbell Chesser, say, who's averaging 21. Is your focus fixing them, or is your focus on, if you don't have injuries to Steele or Gorn, on fixing the mid-pricers like your Tanner Bruins, who are not quite doing the thing that we wanted them to be doing?
I think it's the same thing we said last week. I think it's about value and bringing value to your team, and that's it. That applies to a couple of things, right? That applies to a guy scoring points above his current price point, which is about to change. The prices change from the end of round 3 onwards. The round 1 score only sits in a player's price change calculation for this first week. So if they had a shit week or a good week in the first week, it kind of only matters now. But anyway, so there's 2 things we want to look at. We want to look at points for their price, and we want to look at cash gen. So I guess that's technically the same thing, but when I talk cash gen, I'm talking your really cheap players. When I talk value for price, I'm talking sort of your mid-price up. And I think we can achieve that. That's the focus. However you go about that, your 3 trades should all be achieving that. So if you're trading Max Gorn like I am to, let's say, Darcy Cameron is both making me cash because I'm trading 600k to a 460k, but Darcy Cameron's also value because his points are outperforming his price.
So likewise, you then wouldn't trade Max Gorn to Sean Darcy, who scored 30, 40. He scored not a lot and is more expensive, and his price is about to plummet off a cliff. You'd be steering clear, regardless of the form. Out of principle, you'd be steering clear of a player like Sean Darcy, who's on a dip, on the way down price-wise, and also you're like, is he going to score well? I don't know. Luke Jackson's doing a lot of ruck contests and also not scoring.
Whereas a Tim English at 580k, based on his form so far, averaging 137 from 2 games, 139 on the weekend. Another one, he's still expensive, but he does present value. Now, there's a whole range of reasons I'm not going to trade probably to Tim English, including Bevo. A Tanner Bruin is a great example, right? It's all about getting our cash generators correct in this round. So you can go 2 ways with a Tanner Bruin, and we will get into more detail on these players. But one way to look at it is, all right, points on field and value will set a field. Or can I make 150k by going Tanner Bruin to Harry Sheasel? He's going to jump in price. Tanner Bruin's going to dip in price. And with that other 200k, I can fix a Campbell Chesser to a Will Setterfield or something like that. So for me, it's all about value for money this round. And that could be a 123k player. That could be a 580, I don't know how much Tim English is. I can't see it on my screen. $581,000 player. It's just about value.
Yeah. Beautiful. We'll briefly talk about the rookies first, I think, before we jump into mid-price primos, because that's a whole kettle of fish that we'll duck into. But just the rookies that we really need to be having in our sides.
What price point are we starting at?
I've got 250 because that was where I slid the little slidey thing to on the Supercoach website. We can slide it a bit further or a bit less if you want.
I'm going to go 260 just because I don't know who's around that price. Jack Bowes is not changing in price this week. He's around 270k, I want to say.
Just the worst price imaginable. You couldn't pick a worse price if you tried.
No, let's just quickly touch on him because he looked good. I know people want to jump on him. I would say early 277k because he scored a 108 in his first game. He's one we absolutely have to wait another week on, surely.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, we looked at, saw Tanner Bruin get a plum roll in the preseason, and then that didn't eventuate. Jack Bowes has come in, got a plum roll. There's kind of some weird little injuries. I don't really know what's happening in that Geelong side. It concerns me. It scares me. I don't want to touch it with a bar of soap. I don't want to know it from a 10-foot pole. Like, just get it out of my sight from a Supercoach perspective. It scares me.
Patch. Agree. How are we going to do this? Are we going to do this by position? Are we going to do this by projected price change you drive? I'm happy to sit here and throw opinions.
Cool. I was just going to go through the old break evens, where we're going to list a couple of break evens, and we'll look at whether or not you reckon that player is a must have or not. So I reckon just a quick yes or no. Harry Sheasel, break even of negative 116.
Yeah, projected to jump 83k this week. Scored 114 in both of his games, which is crazy. He's a must-have. Again, I said this last week. I don't think we can rely on him to score these scores every single week. He might score 40 next week with a break-in of a negative 116. Doesn't matter if he scores 40 next week.
Nope.
You put him in your team.
You find a way to get him in at 200k. Cade Chandler at break-even of negative 94. Does he keep his spot when Pickett's back? They've had Squarehead Bailey Fritsch come in. They've got a few others floating around in there. I don't know. Does he stay?
I'm not sold on his job security, but with a break-even of negative 94, projected to jump up 60k this week, he's probably, if I don't have these other must-have guys, and I've already got them all, and I just need to find someone to turn like a Campbell Chesser in, assuming he gets dropped, or turn a Nick Madden in. Cade Chandler's kind of that bracket. He's going to make cash next week no matter what. So he is an investment. I'm just not confident he's going to be a long-term investment.
Yeah.
He's probably that next tier. If we were to do a tier video, which we should have done, in hindsight for the algorithm, we should have done a tier video. Cade Chandler's probably, if Harry Sheasel's S tier, Cade Chandler's B tier.
Yeah, so S and A, you got to get him in, and B tier is like, yeah, if you can. Connor McKenna, I reckon, is A. You pretty much try and get him in. Ruben Jimby, if you for some reason didn't start him, get him in. Jack Buckley, 205k for GWS, break even negative 59, has good job security. Not going to score 88 and 99 every week, but I don't know. Sorry, not going to score 99 every week.
And I think he scored 99 and 77 or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, look, he's probably at his price point, I'm going to say like a C tier, just because I don't really trust GWS. 200k is way more expensive than like 123k Cade Chandler. So he's certainly in consideration for my team, but he's not operation must get this player.
No, certainly not. Noah Long, I think, is B tier. I like his job security. I think the Eagles love him. They'll give him a decent crack at it. Won't score incredibly well, but I think he'll be good. Do you have to get him? No.
Agreed. If you can, and you got all the other guys, sure.
Charlie Constable, I think everyone's got him, and likewise with Darcy Wilmot. Try and get him if you don't have him, but you probably got him if you're listening to this podcast. Anthony Community scored 73 on the weekend, break even of negative 49. We'll play Essendon, who potentially have a depleted key position, the Stonks backline, depending on how Brandon Zerk-Thatcher gets up. What do you think? You love weird.
I'm smiling because I do love Anthony Community. I traded for you, and you drafted him for me in a keeper league. It was a very good. It's very fun.
Matthew Allison and who are the other?
Cooper Sharman. I just collect all those terrible St Kilda tolls. But no, look. The benefit of Community is that he's $102,400, break even negative 49, projected to go up 40k this week, and that's probably unders if he can perform closer to what he did in this last game. He's definitely not a must-get, but he's one of those guys where if you need to bring in a 102k player to get your the other 2 premium targets, for instance, that you're trying to get. If you're trying to fit in a Redmond and a Dacos and you just need the 100k player, he's the one.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have a problem picking him over a Chandler if it was the difference between going from...
If it's the difference, yeah.
Will Ashcroft, Cam McKenzie, Matthias Philippou all have break-evens of -45 to -40. Everyone's got them. If you don't,
I don't have Philippou in my team.
Are you going to be collecting Matthias Philippou this week?
I don't think I will have the opportunity to collect Philippou. He might be the one rookie that I miss on this year. It kind of depends on selection, but my plan this week, because I've got those 2 injured premiums.
Yep.
My current plan is to move them on for other premiums and upgrade Liam Jones. So I'm not super comfortable with him being in my team despite him scoring 78. If selection he plays funny buggers, Liam Jones stays in, I get Philippou, and then round 4 is when I spend that, 400k or whatever it is. Yeah. So, but yes, he's, for all intents and purposes, a must-have player.
Yeah, I think he'll have great job security there and have a decent crack. Jai Menzie, B tier, probably not. Yeah, you'd probably rather community and Noah Long ahead of him. Miller Bergman, 123k defender, didn't see him coming really, but B, mate. Nah. If if Campbell Chester isn't named and there's no one else to go to, sure. Alwyn Davey, I think most people have, and he'd be bringing in Ollie Hollands at an elevated price of 162k, break even -35. Scored 71 on the weekend after a slow start. Looked quite good from the brief glimpses of that game that I saw.
Yeah, I think this is about where he scores. I think he scores 65 to 70. I think I have him in my team on the bench. The elevated price is probably the difficult thing if you're correcting rookies here. At some stage during the season, he will be rested for a week or 2, just because playing on the wing in your first year is going to be difficult, but he's definitely cementing himself in that best 22. So if you can do it, he's going to probably reward you. But again, that elevated price point will make it difficult. So I'm going to say he's A, but maybe A.
Yep. Likewise, Josh Bruce, Max Michelini, elevated price point. The scoring output is questionable long term.
Would you rather Josh Bruce over Matthias Philippou? One's an 18-year-old forward who's had a couple of good starting games. The other's a guy playing a more Supercoach-friendly role, is older.
That's a very good question. I like Philippou's upside, and I think St Kilda rate him, and I don't think Philippou's job security is really in question. There's every chance they rest him once we get towards the buys, but I think Philippou's fine. Bruce, I'm not sure if he's that much more of a friendly role, considering he's playing key defense. He's not playing like a third tall. He's not playing an intercepting role.
They're all tall at the moment. They went from never playing a tall to only playing talls at the Bulldogs.
Which I don't think... I don't know. I don't think there's a massive difference between them. I kind of like Philippou. I like the cut of his jib. He's got DPP, which helps. Bruce is fine.
That's fair.
He's fine. Max Michelini is fine. I'm not moving heaven and earth to get either of them in. Oscar Baker, I think everyone's got, but has underperformed for now. Sure, if you need someone, go for it.
I'm actually considering, like, if I didn't have any other issues, I would actually be considering switching Oscar Baker with someone else. But as it stands, I probably won't have the ability to make that choice.
Yes, which what can you do? Charlie Comben scored 12 this week.
We're skipping a few 200k players here.
We are skipping a few 200k players. We're skipping over likes of Tom Cole, Brent Daniels, negative 27 and 26 break evens. I just didn't.
Owens, Liam Stocker, I just want to quickly mention 2 scores of 74. He's in my side. Don't love it. I don't feel comfortable with it. But I saw we've already had a couple of people just sort of tweeting us throughout the weekend. Is he a must-have? So, is Liam Stocker a must-have?
No.
Yeah, I agree. No. He's not a must-have. I do have him, but he's not a must-have.
He's fine. He's kind of neat. But no, I don't think either of these 3 gentlemen are must-haves. They're elevated prices. Sure. Yeah.
Move on.
Yep, moving on. Lockie Cowan, negative 23. at 117k. Most people have him. Had a slightly better showing points-wise on the weekend, but
I think his ceiling's capped for scoring. I was hoping they'd use him as sort of that running outlet role that he did in his junior career, and I think he will in the future. He's very clearly just being Lockie Plowman, which is caps his scoring. But if you've got him, hang on to him.
Yep. Bobby Hill, Liam Henry, too expensive to bring in despite the negative 22 break even. Luke Pedler was very good round 1 and very poor from a Supercoach perspective round 2, despite doing quite a few nice things. I thought he probably could have had a few more points watching that game, but certainly not a must-have. At 173k, I'm almost considering moving him right along for somebody else.
I think that's reasonable. It's obviously going to be pending selection. It's always hard to move guys with negative break-evens on because, if he comes out and he scores 60 or 70 or whatever it is in the next game, obviously that has flow-on effect. But broadly, yes, let's assume selection goes perfectly. I think he's one you could move on.
Yep. Bodie Euland, break-even negative 21, not essential. If you got him, sure, don't bring him in if you don't. Oscar Ella and Hayden Crozier, anything of note there for you?
Hayden Crozier is a watch. He's a watch. So
Played his
I know
first
he's
game
one
on-
Supercoach Mama wanted to start in round 1 and he wasn't named, and then he comes in and scores 96 points, outscores Bailey Dale, much to my frustration, in round 2. So he's a watch. Yeah, he's a watch. Not jumping on him, not jumping on Ellen.
Are you jumping off Fergus Green?
An interesting one, probably another one where I won't be able to personally, in a perfect hypothetical world, probably. I think his job security is fine. His score, he's just going to be a slow burn, which we sort of knew coming into the season, right? So that was the downside of a lot of these forward options, was that they were all going to be slow burns.
And likewise, he's playing for
if
Hawthorn.
you don't have him,
don't bring him in, God no.
Yeah.
Maybe jump off him. Hawthorn not going to kick a lot of goals this year, and Green's going to be a victim of that because he'd need a lot of them to score points. Jack Bartel injured and missed. Finn Callahan we briefly discussed. Will Phillips played.
Where did we land on Callahan? What are we telling people to do there?
I don't know.
The aggressive play is to. The hard part is that round 1, what did he score? 111. So we know he's got a huge ceiling.
Yeah, 101.
I think the correct aggressive play is move him on and generate to someone who's going to make more cash.
If he misses, then I think you move him on. I think it depends on your situation, in that if you need the cash if it's the difference between going from 400k player to a Nick Dacos, then you move him on. I think if he's the difference, he's expendable. I still think he'll
be good throughout the year. I still think he'll end up. We'll look back and we'll go, geez, he did all right. He averaged 80. He generated some cash. But there are probably more pressing issues at the moment, that more value you can get out of other guys.
Yeah, I think I agree. Will Phillips was a sub round 1, then didn't play. I think a lot of people still have him. If if he's not named this week, still scored 65 in 3/4 as a sub after coming on for Tristan Cherry. Do you hold him if he's named this week? Do you ditch? Obviously, if he's not, you probably ditch him. But
if he's not, you ditch him. If he is, if he is, that's a really tough question because you don't know if he's going to hold this spot, if he's going to get subbed out. That's tough. That's really difficult. Part of me says, assuming you have no other issues, if you had Will Phillips and he was named, I would still. I'd probably lean toward trading him to someone I know I'm getting X amount of projected dollars out of this week.
They rate him down there. I think he's good. He will be. Has proven he'll be good when he's given the role in terms of scoring points. I guess you got to ask yourself if you trust Clarko to keep playing him. I don't know. I think they want to, but they've proven they can't quite fit him in because they've got to fit Liam Shields into that side for some reason.
Yeah. Weird.
I don't know. Anyway, they're winning games, so who am I to question whether or not they should be? Josh Goda, you don't need him. He's break-even -3, averaging 50 odd. Judd McVie, -3. Don't need him if you don't got him. Probably won't stick around that much longer, so flick him would you flick him now if you've got no other injury concerns? Would you flick him across to a Connor McKenna or
I think if you have Judd McVeigh, you've missed out on one of these other guys, and I think you move him on to one of these other guys.
Yep. Our friend Dara Joyce scored 58.
Harry Roston debuted, just one to watch as well.
Yeah, it's certainly one to keep an eye on. Scored 48, but looked really nice, and I think he's still finding his feet. Ben King, break even of 11, a positive break even. Scored 70 on the weekend, which is good.
I don't really know how he got to that either, by the way. I watched that. I was at the game. No idea how he scored 70 points.
Likewise.
He, for me, is a hold. He's in my team. If you're in a situation where you don't have issues, you can definitely move him on to someone with more value. I think he's going to build into the season. So I reckon he could score 75 in round 3 and then maybe pop up for a 90 in round 4. I think he's going to be and then a 50 in round 5 sort of thing. Like, he's going to be a real slow build. So he's not an absolute priority to remove, but if you have no other holes to fill, absolutely move him on.
Yep. And then we've got 2 more players to talk about. I'll talk about the one at the bottom first. Toby McLean was the sub round 1, played the full game for 62 points this week, break even of 18 at 178k. What do with the Bevo salad?
Yeah, avoiding, if you don't have him, if you didn't keep him, avoiding. Look, he's capable, as we saw last year in the final, of putting up really good scores, but no, I don't like it. If you do own him, obviously you hold him. If you don't own him, he's not someone I'm looking to bring in. And to be honest, yeah, even if he comes out and scores 100 this week, the Bevo salad's too much.
It scares the pants off me. Asava Radigalia is the last one on the list. Scores of 31 and, as I try and do maths in my head, 45 to start the
Something
season.
like that.
Break even of 13, ruck forward $174,000. Now, there are 2 scenarios here in which people would have Asava. One would be him on the forward bench with Nick Madden, R3 in the ruck, and the other one is the one that I'm in with Asava in the ruck on the bench with no loop up forward.
Yeah, that's the scenario I'm in. I've just got him at R3, and honestly, I'm relatively happy sitting him at R3. It's an expensive R3. I don't think we're going to have any other alternatives, realistic alternatives. Am I trading him out to a 0 to help me enable 2 other trades? I don't think I am. I think if you've got him, trading him to a 0 gets you a 102k player, gets you 70 grand and no points, and no cash gen, which I don't think is an effective way to use it. So I think where you ride Asava for a couple of more weeks, he may be one of those guys that sits on my bench the whole year, who knows? But I think for a couple more weeks, you just sit him on R3. If you got him in the forward line, or can swing him to the forward line with Nick Madden, put Nick Madden or whoever your swing set is into R3, I think you can move him on. I think you can move him on to a better cash generator. Well, I chose him knowing he was going to be a bad scorer and probably not make cash, but I'm just so vehemently against starting a 0 in my side, and I wanted some ruck cover. And hey, if Max Gawn had injured himself 2 minutes earlier in the warm-up instead of after the bounce, I would have at least had another sort of 30 points on field, right? So That's where I'm at.
Yep, I think you're right. I suppose there is one more scenario where you've got Darcy Cameron up forward with Sava, and in that instance, I guess, if you don't have any other pressing issues and need the 80k, then sure, trade him down to a Madden or whatever, but he's the only ruck cover we'll get beyond a Darcy Cameron, so I think I'm certainly holding him at this stage, and he's, we're not playing him on field unless the worst happens, and it's just kind of nice to have a 40 there instead of a big old donut.
Yep.
A
couple of names we haven't mentioned, Patch. Campbell Chesser.
Break
even is 23, which is the equivalent break even to players who haven't played yet. So averaging 24 points per game. Not good.
No bueno.
You gotta flip him. You gotta flip him. Even if he's named, you gotta flip him. You absolutely need to trade him to someone else.
Yeah, it's hard because he's made no cash and his basement price and
Yeah,
it's burning a trade.
it's
But
an awkward one, and it's gonna hurt the soul, but it's probably something you have to do if you're listening at home and you own him. I don't think he gets named. If he does, I still think you trade him. He's not going to lose cash because I don't think he can lose cash from 123k, or he can't lose much cash from 123k with a break even of 23. But he's just not someone. Yeah, he's essentially a zero, but he's a zero you can't loophole. So I'd be trading him.
Yeah, especially because there's always a sub risk of him. If he's named as an emergency, then he's 50-50 to be the sub. You can't use him as a loop. He's it hurts the soul, which, considering he was talked up as a midfielder, talked up as a good footballer. I got no doubt he is, and may, one day may well be, but at this stage it does hurt, and we probably need to move him.
Yep. Liam Jones. Liam Jones is another name I want to get your thoughts on before I give you my thoughts, because I'm just pulling up my numbers on him.
Yeah, Liam Jones is, we had the 5 in round 1 after he was subbed out, after he was injured, scored 76 on the weekend. Neither of those scores are what he will score all season. I think he scores maybe 70, gets close to that 76 here and there. I wanted more out of him against St Kilda, considering how many points they leaked to Brennan Cox last week, where he scored 150 something. I would want more points from him. I don't think it's the end of the world if we hold him. He will play. He will appreciate in a bit of cash. If you've got other fish to fry, go for it. But likewise, if you need to trade him up, if he needs to be the one to go instead of McKenna, instead of Chesser to get to your Nick Dacos, trade Liam Jones out.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So I've pulled up Bryce Mitchell's projection for him at Bryce, BRICE Mitchell, MITCHELL. You all know him if you're listening to this on Twitter. Projected score of 70 would give you a peak price rise of 338k by round 9. It'd give you 8k this week, 35k the following week. So that's okay cash gen, but I'm going to make as much cash gen, if not more, by going up to a Nick Dacos, which is my current plan. I'm currently planning to move Liam Jones on. However, I don't think he's a must trade.
No.
But, we talk about stepping stones. That's why you start these guys. Normally you wait till they make cash to use them as a stepping stone. In this instance, I'm stepping early.
Yeah, just right on his head. Squish his head right down. Likewise, if you need to go from him to Connor McKenna, which is a trade I'm looking at doing, go for it. I wouldn't be trading him to a Liam Stocker or a Jack Buckley.
No.
That's not. I don't think that's what we're doing here. You're
either
trading him down to someone that will make a lot of cash, or you're trading him up and using the cash you've invested in him to then go up.
Yep, 100% Patch.
Rightio. Shall we move on? We've taken a long time to talk about rookies.
I know we have, but this is the most important round for rookies, right?
It is. It's the most important round, arguably, for the year beyond the round 1 lockout. So apologies if anyone was sitting on a train going, I need these blokes to hurry up so I can get off my train.
Well, the time codes are below. The time codes are below.
They are?
I always put them in.
And we love you for it.
Let's talk mid-prices. Patch. Will Setterfield, number 1 target, AFL.
Yeah, he's good. He's quite good. So, averaging 123, 147 on the weekend, 348k in the midfield. If you started Jacob Hopper, I'm giving Lek a big L.
I started Jacob Hopper and Will Setterfield.
Shut up. All right, the gag was there. Now,
admittedly, I was anti Will Setterfield. When
you were very anti Will Setterfield. You didn't want to borrow of him, and then panicked and got drunk at a wedding, and then traded him in. So
no, that was the Max Gawn trade. Will Setterfield was not related.
I can't keep up with all of your late changes just before round 1. I'm sorry. There's too many of them.
No, the Supercoach. I think it was the Supercoach Insider guys at the season launch for Supercoach were talking about him, and I then was doing the preseason cheat sheets, and I did a bit of research into him, and he has had stints where the Blues used him in the midfield where he did sort of average 90 plus. Now, they were never that long. He was always a bit of a butcher, but he always tackled and always got contested possessions. And one thing that's sort of stuck out to me, which is kind of the reason I ended up starting him, contrary to my abuse of him, was you look at his high scores against every opponent, and with the exception of like Brisbane and Geelong, he has scored a 90 plus against pretty much every side in the AFL. His low scores are very low, but there is a ceiling there when he has the role, and it's very clear that he has the role. So 99 and 147 are huge returns. He's projected to go up by over 60K this week. He is. It's weird to say this about a mid-pricer, but he's like Operation, we have to get this dude into our teams.
Would it be too far to say that he's the George Hewitt of 2023?
He could be the Will Brodie.
Or
he
Will
could be
Brodie.
the George Hewitt. I don't know. I don't know if him. What did he score round 199? I don't know. I don't know what he averages. But I think
looking at the role he's got, because he over the first 2 rounds has had the most centre bounce attendances of any Essendon midfielder over those opening 2 weeks. The role is there. They love him. They're getting the ball to him, but also he's getting the ball first, getting it out. He's exactly what they want. I think the floor for him is 85 each week. Barring injury, barring a really heavy tag, barring something going abysmally wrong. I think the floor for him in that role is similar to the floor for a premium. It'd be 85.
I don't disagree. The role was there. I watched it I was at the ground. I was watching that game, and I was like, shit, yeah, I've seen this guy before in glimpses at the Blues. They're not going to throw him on the wing. They're not going to stuff around with him playing loose in defense. He's there to do one role. I think potentially it dies off as the season progresses, but by then it won't matter. Bryce Mitchell's projections, if he averages 90, he peaks at about 464K in round 8. I don't know if that's his peak for the year, but in round 8 he'll be 460K. An average of 100 makes that 500K, and an average of 110 makes that 540K. So
at 110 it becomes irrelevant because you're keeping him. You're not. He's not there to make cash. So I think it's Operation Get Will. Yeah, as you said, you need to find a way to bring him in this week. Does that, Lekdog, involve trading out Jacob Hopper if Jacob Hopper is named this week? So if Hopper's not named, I think it's pretty easy justification to. I know we spoke about holding him, but I think it's an easy swap to go Hopper to Setterfield. It'll be a popular trade this week, even though the people that did trade Hopper to, say, Jason Horne-Francis lost a lot of points this week and probably have some regrets, but we won't throw salt into those wounds. Is anyone on the chopping block for Setterfield? Are you trading like a Lachie Neale who's underperformed to Setterfield and then using the cash elsewhere? How are we getting Setterfield in, assuming you don't have, say a Tanner Bruhn who's in the midfield and been bad?
I don't really want to move a healthy keeper to Will Setterfield, because then you're saying Will Setterfield needs to be a keeper. If you go from say, let's say Jack Steele 604K, whatever it is, down to Will Setterfield, giving you 250K to play with, you would have to have another mid-pricer somewhere else to jump up to a premium. It's difficult. You're definitely going up from a shitty rookie to him. If you have the ability to do that, you're going up from a shitty rookie. If you have a Tanner Bruhn, if you have a Finn Callahan, you go up to Will Setterfield. You do that. You do it. Going down from a Lachie Neale is difficult. Like Jack McRae. So, do you have Jack McRae? I've got Jack McRae.
I do not. I switched to Bontempelli.
I'm not looking to change Jack McRae to Will Setterfield.
If that meant you could then trade someone like a Fergus Green to Jack Zeeble, who we're going to talk about in a second, does that change your mind when you?
Yeah, it probably does. It probably does. You're removing one keeper for two probable stepping stones, but two stepping stones that are going to produce more points than you're currently producing and more cash. So in that sense, it makes sense. In an isolated vacuum of 1-for-1, I don't want to go from Lachie Neale down to Will Setterfield. But if it strengthens other parts of my team, I think long term it does have value. Yes.
Yeah, it feels weird. Every fiber of my being is saying don't do it, but I think this is the round we can, and with 36 trades, we can be more aggressive to bring in more of these stepping stones that'll get us there faster. We've spoken about it in the preseason. I spoke about it on the mailbag app I was on. I think we try and get these guys in, and Setterfield is one that should be top of the list. Jack Zeeble, you were big on him all preseason. We've seen what you said would happen. Genius, great, smart one. Is he in the same category? Do we need to get Jack Zeeble in, averaging 112 over his first two on the way to a sad grand final loss against the Dons for North Melbourne, but a valiant one nonetheless?
Has the role, has the scoring. Now, yes, I'm sad that I let the mailbag boys talk me out of Jack Zeeble, but that's fine because it meant that I could get guys like Will Setterfield in the team. So actually, no, it was Harry Sheasel I was able to get in as a result. So I'm not unhappy. The big question mark, and people have to remember this because it could happen this week, Patch. He was best on in the VFL.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron Hall will come back into this team. I do not know what role he will play. He was in defense in the VFL. If he's in defense, historically, it reduces Jack Zeeble's scoring. It's massive. I don't know what the on-off is, but it's like 25 to 30 points.
That's still 80 points a game for Jack Zeeble. Is that enough then to bring him in? Because that's my big concern. That's why I didn't start him. It's why I'm scared to bring him in because, even if they give him another few weeks, Aaron Hall will come in at some point. But Aaron Hall will come in and play for 3 weeks, do a hamstring, miss a month. Zeeble's back in form. Do you want to ride that? Do you want to play the game and hope that you're taking the risk basically of how long you think Aaron Hall stays in that side, either as someone that's a healthy footballer that can physically run, or as somebody where North look at him and go, well, you're not in our next premiership side. You're not adding anything that Harry Sheasel's not currently doing off half back. Why would we play you?
Yeah. So, by the way, Hall had 38 disposals and 7 marks in the VFL in defence. We've seen that the scoring comes away from Zeeble. If he averages 80, that's not enough. If he averages 90, that's enough. Who's losing the points? Someone's got to lose the points. I don't think they're both scoring 100 plus. Maybe Aaron Hall is the one that doesn't score that much, and Zeeble continues to score well. There's enough question marks here, and I know guys like Abs Magic and all that are saying that he's an absolute must get. There's enough question marks with the Aaron Hall inclusion for me to say he's not a must get, though I still think he'll reward you if you do pick him.
Yep.
80 points isn't enough. 113 is what he's currently scoring. Historically, Aaron Hall takes away 25 to 30 points of that. An average of 83 is not enough to have him in your team at 356k.
No, which again, it'll hurt if they leave Hall out for 2 more weeks and Zeeble averages 112.
If Aaron Hall doesn't get named, you pick up Jack Zeeble, I honestly think if Aaron Hall's not named in this week, you just pick up Jack Zeeble and you hope, because by then it's only 3 games till positional changes. He opens up a DPP with defense when he gets given defense eligibility. Like there is actually a bunch of reasons if Aaron Hall doesn't play this week to grab him, because you're guaranteed 1 good role.
And likewise, if Hall isn't picked after 38 touches, you said in the VFL, then what's it going to take to? They're obviously not looking for him. Exactly, which is a fair point. All right,
so it very much depends on Hall this week, basically.
Yep. I think so. Nat Fyfe looks injured. 26.7% of teams, you trade him. If he's named, even if he's named, you trade him.
Yep. No, trade him. I wanted to trade him last week. That was in the cheat sheet. Trade him.
Yep. Tanner Bruhn, trade him. Doesn't have the role. Not looking any good in that wing spot. You trade him. I don't see the reason to hold him this week. 2 Hawthorn mid-prices. I'm intrigued to talk about one who you have, one who I have. James Warple and Will Day. Both scored 98 and 99 this week. Both have pretty good roles in that Hawthorn midfield. I don't think either of them are must-haves, though.
I don't think they're must-haves. I think James Worpel's a nice-to-have. He's got the role, but he is similar to a Taranto and a Parish. He needs a lot of it to score, which he's doing at the moment. They're awful. Someone has to get their points. Worpel, I think, is a good candidate for that every week. So he's not a must-have. But if I had Setterfield, for instance, and Hopper, I would probably be looking at getting in Worpel this week if I could.
Yep. I mean, yeah, the interesting question of who do you trade out? But if you've got Bruin sitting there and can swing him to Worpel, I think it's a better play than
100%.
If Hopper is so. Say you don't have Jacob Hopper, you're one of the 55% of people that don't have Jacob Hopper. He's named this week, coming off a 119. Do you try and trade him in?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people jumped off last week. They jumped from him to Setterfield, from him to Horn Francis, from him to whoever else. I'm almost tempted to try and jump on if I can physically do it.
No, I think he's a jump on candidate. I think he's gonna fluctuate his scoring. I think 93 average, which is what he currently has, is what he'll probably have. And he's gonna do it by scoring a 120 and a 70 and an 80 and a 100 and a 90 and a 90. And I think that's how it's gonna go. I'm all aboard bringing him in if you don't have him. I'm not going out I'm not selling the fun. I'm not going to trade out.
You're not
two
trading
premiums.
Not trading Jack McRae to get Setterfield and
no,
Hopper.
I don't. Oh, geez, it's tempting.
Jeez, it's so tempting, isn't it? God, you want to do it.
That example, and I'm a McRae owner. I probably would do that. I guess how many spots do you have available in your midfield? There's lots of things to consider. You don't want to push Will Ashcroft onto a bench. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. But yes, Bubble, Hopper's worth trading in. Yes, if he's named and if he's playing.
Yep. Apparently, 20,000 people now have Dane Rampy in their side, Lekdog.
Madness. I actually put in the cheat sheet, do not trade this man into your team, and had people arguing with me. They said, but he scored a 150. I said, yeah, but look at his career scores.
He scored 82 on the weekend. Good luck enjoying that for the rest of the year, everyone. He'll be whatever.
Did you mention Will Day, by the way?
I did. We didn't really talk about him in depth. We spoke more about Worpel. Day had 98 on the weekend. He scored 60-odd in the opening round. Didn't really have a role change from what I saw from the two games. I think he just kind of got his hands on it a little bit more, was a little bit better with it. Playing a mixture of inside and outside midfield. So he's kind of running centre bounces and then kind of playing on a wing or off half back. So I think there's, I think that's about his ceiling. He doesn't go too much bigger than 98. He's, probably floats between 60 and 100 and will average like 80, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's
fine.
He's definitely a hold if I have him. He's probably not someone I'm trying really hard to bring in.
No, if you're trading in the back line this week, you're probably trying to trade in Dacos or someone else who, trying to probably go out to a premium instead of
Brennan Cox, apologies to the guy in my inbox who I told not to pick when he had him pre-season.
Yeah.
And he's come out and scored about 300 points.
Yeah.
Jason Horn-Francis, if you're an owner, you have to hold. If you're not an owner, don't trade him in for all the reasons that were highlighted in the cheat sheet. It's like, yeah, he could score 150, but when their full team is there, he could score 50, and he scored 45. So
I wouldn't be shocked if he scores 160 points in the showdown this week, and then scores.
He very well could,
and then scores 40
not
again.
Taking that gamble.
No,
there are safer options at this price.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got him, maybe VC him. That's my cheeky shout of the week, but I'm not trading him in. Again, worried about that fluctuation. I don't really want a bar of it. We won't spend too much more time on those mid prices.
Dom Sheed, by the way, 88 and 90. So he's doing what we thought he would do.
Yep, he's interesting. And then also Max Holmes as well as that 102, which people were after. Sneaky little.
Is there anyone that people have to trade out in this price point? Like a Ben Cunnington, right? Break even 95, has scored 85, and I think he scored 60 in the first week. He's a trade for me.
Yep. I think he's a trade. There are a lot of other better options, especially if you can swing into that midfield and get some of the guys we spoke about before. I think he's a pretty safe bet. The other ones, 1.9% of teams for both of these gentlemen, Tom Powell and Archie Perkins. Powell averaging 73.5 after 2 scores in the 70s, and Perkins with a great round 1 and then just 45 against the Suns on the weekend after his 114 in round 1. I think both of these guys you'd move on to safer options.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't think there are too many other mid-prices worth chatting about
There isn't.
in that range, unless I don't know who would have too many other of these players. So I think
let's bring it home strong. Premium selections that you need to bring into your Supercoach team. Number 1 target, Nick Dacos, break even 7. Most of you have him in your team. 100% bring him into your team.
Number
Darcy
2
Cameron.
Number 2 trade target is Luke Davies-Uniacke, who is
not Luke Ryan, who's going to score 41 weeks soon.
No, Luke Davies-Uniacke is somehow better than one of my favourite players in the AFL, Luke Ryan, because he scored 145 against Fremantle 155 and 143 against West Coast. He's bloody good at football, Lekdog. I watched both of those games and holy dooly.
I know Stato's absolutely loving it from the fantasy side of things. Look, LDU, I'm almost lucky that Jack Steele is injured because I get to look at bringing in a guy like LDU this week.
Yep.
Which is an absolute bloody privilege. It's a bloody privilege. He's a beast. We thought it might be the year that some of these young guys, Tom Green, LDU, jump up, and he has certainly jumped up. Now, obviously, you can't get the 298 points that he's already scored. But as I said on Twitter, even if he drops down to averaging 110 to 120, guess what? You're going to be bloody stoked.
Well, he's averaged, I saw somebody tweet this week that he's averaged 112.7 since round 5 last year. Like, the breakout has happened. This is not a
yes.
We're jumping on the breakout. This is
we are mid picking just a very good player.
Yeah, he's here. He's arrived. He's a premium and underpriced based on missing the mark a little bit in the early part of last year. I'm now in a very, very difficult position where I have to choose because I can only get one of them. Do I bring in LDU? Do I bring in Nick Dacos? I'm going to flip-flop about 300 times before Thursday night.
Well, the guy allowing me to bring in both of them is Darcy Cameron, who will be coming into my ruck line averaging 120. He's still sharing time forward on ruck, but break even at 24, $465,000 ruck forward option. Later on, we can always swing him forward. A lot of people already have him, but I think he's number 3 on my target list this week, averaging 120. He's good, and Tim Mitchell should be happy.
Yep, Tim Mitchell should be very happy. I'm also very happy I've got him proud as punch to see him in there.
Errol Goulden's probably the next one, Patch.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't want to talk about like Matt Flynn and Scott Pendlebury and guys like this, really.
No, I mean, tip of the cap to Scott Pendlebury. God, he's doing it again. You love to see it. But yeah, as you said, Errol Goulden is a very interesting one to be looking at.
Yeah, another guy that actually I've just remembered I can't get LDU and Nick Dacos and Darcy Cameron. I have to choose between like Errol Goulden, Darcy. I have to choose a combination of them. But Errol Goulden's up there in the discussion. This is a mid where we are seeing the breakout begin. I'm still worried about his floor, but 107 and whatever it was, 115 from this first game, both good scores.
Yep, both very good scores. He did what he wanted, as did the entire Sydney side against Hawthorn. Round 1 against Gold Coast, has a tougher test this week against Melbourne. Every chance because he's in the taggable role in that midfield. You're not going to tag, say, a James Rowbottom in that side because it's not going to do as much impact. But again, I said Nick Dacos would get tagged, and look at me now, a fool, a damned fool. And I don't think that's a massive concern. It'll hurt him a little bit, but I see parallels to Zach Merritt's breakout year, Lekdog.
Right, a couple other guys that present value still. Tim English, even at 580k, presents value with how he's
Yep.
playing. Mason Redman at 510k
Red
presents
Dog!
value.
Lock him in.
And Tom Green still presents value at $530,000. There's a couple other guys that are playing, like Tom Mitchell playing really well, 528. Stephen Guinea playing really well at 557. But I'd say the next tier of guys that you want to be looking at are like this: Tim English, Mason Redman, Tom Green.
Yep. I also want to get your thoughts on one sneaky defensive option. If you've already got Dacos, you don't trust Redmond because you think Essendon, wrongly will lose a bunch of games between now and the end of the season. Adam Sard has started the year very well, 115 and 113. He's 567k. It's kind of on the more expensive side, but he's bloody good.
Yeah, I had him in my top 8 sort of. I don't know if I did top 8 or top 10. I can't remember. I did on Twitter defenders. I did average and total points, and I had him in the total points top 8 because I just think he's going to be a consistent scorer throughout the year. It's funny because they're asking him to be a defender, but he's still finding ways to attack. So he's actually been good at footy and good at Supercoach, which isn't always the case. So yeah, and I love him. One of my favorite players. They're actually starting to use him properly coming out of defense as well at the Blues. So, yeah, I think he's a reasonable selection. Like
he's a fun pick too.
He's a fun pick. He's certainly a fun pick. I think whereas we've seen Doherty, he can put out a 70 and then he can put out a 200. I think Adam Sard's like, I'm just going to score 100 points.
Yeah, or he's between average high 90s, and that's good. That's good. Just very quickly, I know we need to wrap it up because we're going for an hour. The underperforming premiums, your Sean Darcy's with a 41 on the weekend. Jordan Ridley with 70 on the weekend underperformed. Jack McRae we've spoken about a fair bit. There are a bunch of players here who aren't injured. They're just crap. What do we do with these guys who you've hung your hat on as a safe selection in whatever line you've got them in, and they've just not been very good. Even your Lockie Neal's averaging, you paid $676,000 for Lockie Neal, and he's averaging 97.5.
Rory Laird's another one as well, right? And he scored 147, but his break even is 202.
We saw people trade Rory Laird last week, and he's now scored 147. Yeah. Is that the cautionary tale? Do you just back him in? Do we take this opportunity to bring in a Hopper and a Setterfield? Do we bring in I
think it is. I think, look, with the exception of the Bulldogs players, they're probably the ones that I'm really putting an asterisk against. Unless there's been a huge role change that you've noticed in your premium selection, you probably shouldn't be moving them. I say except Bulldogs because they play a different position every quarter.
It's like the under 9s sometimes.
It is. So I want to put them aside. A Lockie Neal, he's not playing really well, is he? 96 and 100 or whatever it was, 95 and 100.
He's playing fine, but he's not paying
$700,000.
Yeah.
The aggressive play, it depends how you want to play it. If you don't have other issues that you need to fix, right, at selection, that's what I'm going to keep coming back to. If I came to my team selection and I had 30 green lights, I would trade Lockie Neal to an LDU and use that 120k to turn I don't know, a Finn Callahan into a Will Setterfield. I think that is absolutely a fine play, but it's all going to come down to if you've nailed your rookies and your cash generators. That's the focus coming out of this round. Lockie Neal's going to lose some cash. He's going to lose a lot of cash, but at some point he's going to be scoring points for you, and at worst he's still going to be scoring an okay amount of points for you. If you need to turn your zeros or your rookies are averaging 20 or your 200k player that's averaging 30 or your 300k player that's averaging 40, if you need to turn them into cash generators, that's the focus this week, more than moving on these 600, 700k players. I think that's where I'm at. In a perfect world, you open your team, you've got 30 green dots at the start of round 3. Hell yeah. Let's get crazy. Jack McRae, you're done. Lockie Neal, you're done. Sean Darcy is a different one. I don't know why he's different to me. I have no issues trading him. I've got less faith that he'll bounce back than a Lockie Neal does.
Yep. That's fair. I just wanted to get your thoughts on those guys that haven't quite set the house on fire, because there were a lot of this cash will come from to let us bring in these point generators. But
I think
we see.
like a
So
Lachie Neale.
these Bulldogs players, though, you're happy to trade
Oh,
them.
mate. Well, I'll just finish the thought on Lachie Neale first, just because I just want to say, you probably don't want to move guys on that you're going to be looking to trade in later again. So everyone is going to jump on Lachie Neale when his price drops. What is he now? He's 670k. They're projecting him to drop into sort of that 580k at some stage in the season, right?
Yep.
You don't want to trade him out now and then be trading him in again. I don't think. Whereas a Sean Darcy, I don't think anyone's chasing, unless injuries happen again, is running around to bring him back in. Bulldogs, we'll finish up here, Patch, because the thing's about to crash, I think. The Bulldogs players, McRae and Bailey Dale and Smith, as you said, I got nothing for you, man. I don't know. I really want to trade Bailey Dale. I really want to trade Jack McRae, but I do not have the means to. And Jack McRae, I probably wouldn't, because I want to bring him in later. But Bailey Dale, Bailey Smith, I want to trade. I just personally don't think I can.
But even like they've thrown Caleb Daniel in the middle and he's not scoring points. Like they're not winning games of football. They're not looking especially good I don't know what's going on there, and I don't really want to borrow of it outside of Bontempelli and English. Yeah, even looking at McRae's running out of full forward.
I know.
On the weekend. I'm not going to scold anyone for trading out a Jack McRae or a Tom Torre, or if you bought in Ed Richards hoping for a scintillating year off halfback, he didn't. He was all right round one.
You know what? I'm with you. For the Bulldogs, I think they're a separate case. Trade them all. Trade every single one of them. Get them out of your team. Because I don't know what is happening over there.
I think the only one, like Tim English, is the only one that would be locked into that role. I'm still scared.
I'm scared to trade him in. And I've got to find a replacement for Max Gawn, but I'm scared to trade in Tim English, and he's averaging 140 or whatever it is.
He's the one I'd be really confident in. Marcus Bontempelli scares me because he, taking off the Supercoach hat, putting on the coaching one, he'd be the one I'd have running out of full forward instead of Jack McRae, who is not a forward. Shocking, scandalous, controversial take. Bont can play that role. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I know that the Dogs players and coaches and fans, they all love Bevo. I can't figure out what that man is doing.
I'm not sure they all love him anymore, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, the only premiums we absolutely have to trade for sure, I think off the top of my head, are Jack Steele and Max Gawn and Tom Stewart. But if there's any underperforming ones in your team, if you think you're going to want to trade them in later when their price decreases, it's probably not worth trading them. But as we discussed, all those other alternative worlds where you can bring in multiple other premiums, I don't know. Trade Bulldogs. That's where I'm at.
That's where we got to, community. That's where we've got to. For what it's worth, I briefly tinkered with my team and traded out Sam Doherty and was able to bring in Dacos and Davies Uniacke, and I feel very good about that. So
I think you should. I think
for what it's worth, it's as much as do as we say, not as we do. I'm doing the thing as well. So
no, you can make that decision. That's fine.
Anyway, good luck. Have fun with it this week, community. This is the week where, outside of the days before lockout, you can play around a lot, but also you can't. It's almost more fun than before lockout because you can't tear your whole team apart and try an entirely new structure. You're like, right, this is what I'm locked into.
Yes,
I've got 3 trades. I can play with it. This is, we've got the amount of clay on the table that we've got to make our pot. This is where we can actually start tearing it apart and kind of, do the thing where it starts spinning and then you put your hands behind mine as you come up behind me and we sculpt the pot together, Lekdog.
Yes.
This is the metaphor. The metaphor is falling apart, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I'll save it. We'll throw the pot. That's what it's called. Just as we will throw our Western Bulldogs players from our teams. Beautiful. Community, thank you. Look for value this week. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned on the website, jockreynolds.com.au for the mailbag and for the cheat sheets and for Around the Grounds and Panic Room. It's all happening there. Patch, thank you for joining me. Bloody love you, mate.
Love you too, Lekdog. Love you, community. Go Dons.
Go the equally undefeated Blues.